Hi, welcome to the Tales of TIC Podcast. Today I'm very privileged to welcome Tanya Melville to the podcast. Tanya is a well-known figure within the environmental consulting sector, most notably progressing to VP of LDAR Group at Montrose Environmental, as well as being a spokesperson and mentor for women in leadership. So Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Likewise. I know you've had a great career and I'm really keen to hear your thoughts and just maybe learn about how you got into the space. And actually, let's start there, Tanya. So, you've had a dynamic career in environmental compliance, air quality, and LDAR. What initially drew you to this field from school, college, or maybe even beforehand?
It's funny. I don't think anyone thinks that, there's no career for LDAR. There's no college degree for LDAR, right? So I don't think anyone's like, that's what I'm going to do right out of college. So, but I'm drawn to help people, which is why I got my degree in environmental. I wanted to do something that I could tangibly make a difference. And I did not necessarily know that focus would be LDAR, but I started out as an air quality inspector for the government, giving violations, and I was very good at it. But I didn't want to be putting people out of business for the rest of my career. I wanted to help people stay in compliance, to help them understand their part in keeping our environment safe and make it better. Leak detection work has had an immense impact on the quality of air we breathe, and I'm proud to have been a part of that. So after applying to many sectors of environmental work, I was hired at an LDAR company as a project manager. But my time as an auditor had a great influence over how I approached LDAR work. And I think that's what made me very successful. I always had that auditor's mindset, find the non-compliance, but also fix it and make programs better. And that still drives me today.
No, awesome. I think it's quite funny you mentioned that, especially in the environmental space. A lot of people have that passion early doors, but they're not sure exactly which route they're going to take. And I think we're all glad you found yourself in LDAR, for sure. It may sound cliche, Tanya, but I imagine from when you started, your career until today, the industry will have evolved massively. I mean, what are some of the maybe biggest challenges that you see in LDAR today that maybe you didn't see when you started? And, do you think technology can help with solving those?
Absolutely. I think there's two major challenges. One is the quality of the data. We're human beings, we make mistakes. And so that's an important part of it. But also another is the cost. So let's start with quality. To have a good quality program, it truly requires a team that understands the goal of what we're trying to do and believes in the work. And I've worked with people who can do the work, but don't necessarily have that love for LDAR that some of us do, where they really invest in the quality of the work. Maybe it's like, it's good enough, right? You'll never last in this industry if you don't have the integrity to maintain the quality of the work. And I believe that starts by believing in what we're trying to accomplish, right? Good quality LDAR work is about finding ways to improve the program, not just maintain it, to make less emissions. And that requires a real partnership with the employees and the client at every level. The other challenge is the cost of LDAR. The cost of LDAR is continually trying to keep up with paying great employees and keeping them, those people that really believe in the work. But industry is not always willing to pay for great people or great program. They want it, but paying for it's a different side. And that's understandable, right? We have rising prices for consumers, and they have their own pressures to deal with to keep costs down. However, many industry folks focus on the cost of the program and not the cost of the non-compliance when it's done poorly, and that can greatly outweigh it. If you want something different, you have to be willing to pay for it. So it is a challenge. Now, both of these are being improved by developing new technologies that are more efficient. They can identify larger leaks faster, or through continuous monitoring, they can continuously look at those leaks and fix them before they become too large. Regulations are starting to allow these technologies, but in some cases, they're creating requirements that really reduce those efficiencies that we previously gained. So while technology is improving, regulations still need improvements to really focus on the end goal of reducing the emissions with quality data.
Oh, great. I appreciate that, Tanya. And I think you're right as well on the price side. Often, people aren't willing to, I suppose, pay the price for a great employee. And I don't want to put anyone out of work, but as you'll know, sort of AI automation, it's everywhere. We're seeing it creep into the environmental industry. Do you see a role for these technologies in LDAR and compliance, or do you think maybe, I don't know, there's no really good substitute for a good employee, I guess, in this sense?
No, absolutely. Method 21 and OGI, which are the main staples of an LDAR program, they're handheld inspections, and it's really only a snapshot in time. But with sensors, this really allows for LDAR to have a faster response time and allow AI tools to model, to become more predictive. And it also just helps in overall business by using AI, right? AI will create efficiencies by automating the development of standard operating procedures and understanding new regulations, which could be hundreds, sometimes thousands of pages. And to process that amount, we can really focus on the compliance of a program and the day-to-day work, as opposed to the administrative side of really maintaining and growing a business. So I think the more we can focus on using tools like AI, we can become more proactive in our business.
No, I agree, and I think often there's sort of that debate of AI replacing humans and replacing people, whereas actually if they work in symphony together, you're right. Sort of we can improve processes, but also employees etc. can focus their attention elsewhere and sort of work in harmony. So, no, great answer. I appreciate that. I mean, alongside you work in LDAR, Tanya. So your experience, you have, I suppose, experience in M&A and expansion. I mean, what factors do you consider when evaluating potential acquisitions in the environmental industry, or even considering potential target companies?
Right. So first, I think one of the things that I look at is, what do you bring to the table, right? I'm not necessarily always looking for companies that can add on the same thing. So you have to add something different, a new geography, diverse clients in a new industry, new technology, or a new tool. So then we kind of focus on your reputation, right? Like, what's your reputation across the industry? And then two other really important factors, the financials and the culture. So when you do the financials, once you merge with a company and maybe you're a small business, right? And you join maybe a larger corporate business, are you still profitable? What is your future outlook at keeping your existing business financially stable, and also your ability to expand? And then the other one, culture, which is can be a real deal breaker. You can look great on paper, but if the team can't sustain through a transition, then it's a bad deal. That can mean that the culture of the team as a whole, their values that they're taught, and how is that going to merge with the company that's acquiring them, but also what's the culture of leadership in accepting this transition, because they're the ones that are going to help the employees through it, right? And get them on board and through that change curve, which can be very challenging. If the company falls apart because of the culture of this transition, then it's not a good deal.
No, I agree. I think the financials of an acquisition, they're always great to look at, but ultimately, if a company is being acquired and integrating, there needs to be that, seamless integration of cultures. And as you said, you need to look at the people. When you're doing that, do you ever look at, obviously the people within the business, but do you also go and do due diligence with maybe customers and get feedback from there and learn about employees and their behaviors through that? Or is that maybe further down the line in the process?
I personally haven't gotten involved in that, so I don't know if I could directly speak to that. Yeah. But I think it's an absolute must when you're looking at the reputation of a company, talking to those customers and seeing how they're doing and what value they've been adding.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. So, I mean, your experience, Tanya, said it's vast. We have the LDAR side, we have the M&A, and you mentioned their culture, which I think is quite fitting. So, what many people may not know is that, an intriguing part of your background, you've been actively involved in many diversity initiatives. So you're an executive sponsor for, LGBTQIA and also women in leadership. I mean, how do you think companies, they may be performing well, but how do you think maybe they can better support underrepresented groups, specifically in the environmental sector?
I think the biggest thing you can do is listen. You have to be really actively listening to these groups. You know, you may start an ERG because it looks great on paper, right? Or someone asked for it. But if you're not engaged, like I was an executive sponsor and I was engaged with those groups, asking what was important to them, what were their experiences, and educating yourself as a leader about what support your employees need, because that really allows you to support them with an active framework to establish goals that is going to really move the needle for them. It can't be a checkbox. It takes active engagement and really wanting to improve the careers and life they experience at your company. I think looking at your own unconscious bias, which is very difficult, but we all have it, I myself included, and not understanding what people go through because you're not in their shoes, right? You're not in their office every day. You're not working with their peers, with their clients. And there's things that happen that you can't even imagine. So you don't. And that means it goes unchecked. And the final thing is you have to take action with that. Listening is not enough, right? So what are the goals that you can establish, that you can measure? If you think about it, we spend the majority of our lives at work, and there are many people that show up every day hiding themselves, right? Because it's not accepted, or there's retaliation because of it. And so if you can't bring your authentic self every day to work, it's not worth it. And it doesn't last, right? The passion that you bring to work and is a part of you. It's not just the work you're doing, but it's how you feel about yourself when you're doing that work. And so being able to engage with a leader and create something that's going to make a difference in your day to show up exactly who you are in all parts of your life, I think that's amazing. And it can be done.
Absolutely. No, those are great points. I do think, just as a society or just as a sector, maybe we are progressing quite nicely. I imagine from when you start in the industry or even further back, the landscape and culture was very different. So I think we're on a positive curve, but, I think, you can never stop progressing. And as you've said, people they spend most of their lives at work. So you need to feel comfortable. It's how you improve productivity, and especially from leaders, listening's one thing, but, acting and being vocal it's a second. So I appreciate that. I mean, similarly, Tanya, you yourself were very good, or are very good at, I think, actioning the points that you speak of. Just to name maybe one of the things you've done is you actually increased the number of women technicians in the field considerably during your career. I mean, what were some of the key actions that led to your success in this aspect? Or was it very similar maybe to looking at underrepresented groups?
It was something, I don't think I noticed it at first, right? And when I didn't set a KPI goal and said, you have to hire this many women, right? It was much simpler than that. I just asked why. I got my managers together. I got HR together with them. And I asked, why don't we have any female technicians, right? And I had my own preconceived notions about what was the answer. And I was wrong, absolutely. And the real answer was they weren't getting resumes from women. And so we worked with our recruiters to ensure they recruited more diversely and provided resumes to managers from diverse groups. And that did it. It was quite simple, right? You may think it was, a bias from the managers and they thought women couldn't be in the field. And that wasn't it at all, right? It was, they weren't getting resumes. And so it just took a little tweak in how we were recruiting and what groups we were partnering with, and making sure that there was a diverse sample from them to choose from. And, I think it increased within 2 years over 23%, something like that. So, sometimes it just takes asking the question.
Sure. Do you think one aspect of that shortage as well is maybe, if women are looking to get into that field or looking to go out into the field as a technician, maybe they didn't see any role models, so they were maybe shying off? Or do you think it was maybe an issue in the hiring process?
I don't think so, but I will tell you, if you look at the consulting side of air quality, you see majority women. But if you look at the field side, you see majority men. And so I think I don't know if it's where women are focused on applying, but
Mhm.
when I talk to the women that were in like our project management roles, which is like a consulting role, a lot of them started in that role and they didn't do the field first. And you can go one way or the other, but they wished they had gone into the field first to give them that more hands-on experience and growth development throughout their career. So I think it is interesting, but the resumes are out there. I think it's just making sure that the diverse pool is being brought in.
No, it is. It's an interesting point. I said, hopefully that's something that changes. Maybe people in my role, etc., bringing these people to fruition, and they are getting the I don't want to say recognition they deserve, but they're being brought to the forefront, and they're getting the rightful opportunities they can in the field. I suppose a similar notion as well. Since you started, have you seen through the initiatives you've been leading, have you seen an increase in women in leadership? And I imagine yourself as sort of a great picture and maybe an idol for some people. Do you think that's helped maybe increase the amount of women going into these leaderships or maybe believing they can?
You said it just right. Believing they can, right? There's studies out there that essentially say women won't apply for a job unless they're 100% ready, but men will apply to jobs even if they're not ready at all, right? And so, with that kind of mindset, I think that is part of the struggle of women rising to leadership opportunities. One, they're not applying. And to be honest, I was never looking to apply to different positions. It was other people bringing me up and recognizing talent or the opportunities that I could create in a role. And I think that's a huge part of gaining women into leadership roles and preparing them is bringing other women up, recognizing, and it's not necessarily women, right? There are people that are more soft spoken and are not going to speak up for themselves, right? And that doesn't mean you can't be a great leader. And so it's that mentorship or even being a champion for someone. So if you're in a leadership role, it is absolutely your duty to be looking for people that you can champion. And that means speaking up for them and raising them up into positions. And then mentoring, which is, mentoring is a little bit different. There's a boss and there's a mentor and there's a champion. And a mentor is really looking at the personal and the professional and how do we, take the best parts of all of you and create a career that you are proud of and gives you that balance in your life that you're looking for. And whereas a champion is the one speaking up for you and putting your name out there for that opportunity when you're not even in the room, right? Who recognizes the talent, recognizes your achievements, and is bringing up your name in a room.
Sure. Well, surely that's what makes a great leader, isn't it? Someone that can encompass everything, and that's what you want in leadership. So I think if you've got people behind you, backing you to that level, even when you're not there, then yeah, certainly bodes well, and you're at the right company as well. So no, some really good insights there, Tanya. I mean, before we leave, I always like to finish, and someone, especially with your background in the industry, if there's any advice you'd give to people looking to go into the industry, or any thoughts on the industry and where it's going, maybe.
This industry is special. I think a lot of people think that LDAR is probably one of the easiest industries for the work, right? It's very repetitive. And if you do it right, it's actually incredibly challenging and difficult. And you see that by a lot of the non-compliance out there. It's not easy. But it does allow for entry level people to get in the environmental industry straight out of high school, college. You don't have to have any experience, right? But it's an incredible career. And the one thing you have to have is you have to have integrity, believing in the work. The quality of the work matters. It impacts the safety and the health of so many people at the industries and the communities around them. And there's a lot of tangible work that you can do to contribute to that, the lives we can save. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. And I think it's a great career path for anyone who's just starting out or is looking for a change.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it's the best industry out there, maybe because I'm so heavily involved in it, but from an adjacent side. But I agree. So no, thank you for your comments, Tanya. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, listening to your thoughts. I know they were very valuable to everyone listening and everyone in the sector. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.